Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We're gathered here today in the light of the recently issued Equal Pay Decree in the private sector by His Highness President Sheikh Khalifa. As well as we're celebrating the Global Equal Pay Day that was launched in 2020. We are very honored to introduce tonight's eminent guest, our distinguished speakers for the night, Her Excellency Shamsa Saleh, who provides valuable leadership at the UAE Gender Balance Council, a federal entity established in 2015 to support gender equality. And the one and only Ms. Jennifer Vasquez, the Global Diversity, Inclusion and Belonging at Amgen, who will shed a light on the equal pay as well as diversity, inclusion and belonging on a global scale. It is indeed a great pleasure to welcome you all to our episode today of the Business Talk about gender, diversity, inclusion, and equal pay, which is a great, remarkable milestone. So to start with you, Excellency, welcome, Ms. Shamsa. It's a great pleasure to have you with us, and thank you so much for making the time to be with us today, depending where people are coming from.
Thank you. Pleasure is mine to be amongst of you tonight and discuss such an subject, especially and come up with a recommendation for the region and for the world when it comes to different policies, initiatives that support the gender balance or gender equality and women empowerment.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to have you. So to start about celebrating, if you will, the UAE milestone in gender equal pay, and speaking about the journey, can you share with us some insights and how the UAE has become a regional leader in gender balance?
Gender balance is always embedded within the national strategy of the UAE since the inception of the country in 1971. And both men and women were part of the national strategy and the national agenda of the country. Women were involved since the beginning of the federation in 1971 when it comes to putting the strategy of the country, the education, coming to media, political agenda, and economic participation of women. So the journey was as following. The women started the empowerment journey by fulfilling the gap in education, and today we rank first globally when it comes to fulfilling the gap in literacy rate, and also the enrollment from high school to university is 95%. This is the thing that we are really proud of, and we are like now gaining the fruit of the educational empowerment of women. Later stage in 1980s, the country focuses on entrepreneurship and business empowerment of women, and establishing different business women council across different emirates, which help to increase women participation in the economy and private sector as well. 10 years back, the country realized that we really need to move further and establish the UAE Gender Balance Council to put the framework for the country that has like a basement of the legislations and policies that support gender equality and again fulfill all the gaps that we have in the current legislations and come up with the new ones and monitor the implementation of the existing legislations and evaluate how much we have done so far and what needs to be done. So the government gave the UAE Gender Balance Council a ranking of reaching top 25 by 2021. In 1919, we reached top 26. We are like one rank away from the target that given. So the good thing that the government also drive this agenda by result or by targets and KPIs for the country in gender balance in different sectors. So this is basically where we started from, and today we are aiming to set a model for the region in gender balance.
Great milestones, and for sure it's been an amazing progress, if you will, within a very short period of time. And this is, I would say, something that I take pride to say that UAE has been able to accomplish, at so many levels. And I believe I'm one of the lucky ones to be in such an amazing country. Jennifer, let's have the private sector lens, if you will. And first of all, welcome to our session. And again, thank you so much for waking up so early to speak with us.
Yes, good morning. Good morning from the West Coast of the US. I am so honored to be here to have this dialogue at such a critical time, particularly with a year that I consider an anomaly for all of us. And so what we've been doing in the private sector, really with all the social unrest, particularly in the US, a lot has been driven around equal rights with women. Within our company, we've done a concerted effort. I mean, it's been a huge overhaul in a short period of time. So it's amazing. I consider there's some silver lining with 2020. If this, global experiment hasn't taught us anything, I think for the most part, it's taught us the importance of diversity, inclusion, and belonging, particularly with women, given that many have been experiencing what's called the double shift, which is taking care of their home life, their family, their children. In many cultures, there's generational households, and then having their career and having to work from home. So it's been quite a balance. And so within the corporate structure, we've look to really assess and get an understanding of some of the opportunities we have to support women, particularly to have a balance. The lines have blurred between our private home life and our work life. And so it's really been an important role for us within corporate, within our particular industry, to ensure that we are supporting our women through various benefits, programs. We're working really closely across our global environment. We understand that there's certain dynamics within each region. And so for that, the global DIMB team works really closely with the employee resource group community, the global community, particularly the women's ERG, that really has a good pulse, and we call them the heart of DIMB, where they're really a lot of grassroots effort around developing programs. And so how are we scaling those programs in a way that's creating meaningful and lasting change? And one of the concerns that we're experiencing, challenges that we're starting to experience is of women, because of the equal pay, the lack of equal pay. We have two household incomes where if the man, for the most part, is making more than the woman has to sacrifice their career. And so we're losing more women. There's approximately 2 million in the global workforce of women that will be leaving to family obligations, and that's going to leave a huge gap. And we've made some major strides, particularly in corporate environment. 2020, again, an anomaly. We've seen more women take on seats on corporate boards. We have about 22% women in global corporate environments. With the U.S. elections, which I know everybody's, globally, their eyes and ears have been attuned to it, and what's happening, that's very dynamic within the U.S. at this juncture. And now we've seen the most women elected to serve within Congress. So we've seen a lot, with the equal pay, the international recognition for the first time in history, the Beijing 25th anniversary declaration, which is this year it was set to be milestones of really pushing that agenda under the United Nations. And then lastly, a lot of corporate America and global corporate environment, there's their ESG, which is their environmental, social, governance priorities, or their corporate social responsibility, has focused on the SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals. And that has been a huge transformation where we're aligning, and SDG number 5 is equality for women and ensuring that there's a gender balance for young girls And one of the areas that we're focusing in that particular area in the pipeline is young girls in STEM. So there's a lot of great activity happening. Amgen has really been at the forefront of a lot of key conversations. Our leadership has been phenomenal in not just engaging and making statements, but really putting the resources and the effort behind this. And again, engaging our employees where they're at globally. So it's been a pretty transformative year, I think, for all of us, but particularly in the movement in this arena. There's been this fire and appetite for this change, and not just within the US, but globally.
Fabulous. It's wonderful story to hear. And, we're hoping more of corporates will follow, if you will, this path and invest and believe in such a great cause. Your Excellency Shamsa, what would you think that will be the implications of the Equal Pay Decree on the economy of the UAE? And what do you think there would be the government support required in terms of implementation?
Today, one of the ultimate goal in the country, and we had a recent stand-alone law on ending of all kind of discrimination against women, like color discrimination, religion, and nationality. Also, we have a new law on this non-discrimination, and one huge chapter of this law is gender discrimination, and one of our mandate is to end all type of discrimination that both men and women face in the society. And one important part was the discrimination in the workplace, which equal wage was an important element of it. So we propose to the government to work on changing that law, especially in the private sector law, because in the government law was there since inception. But when it comes to the private sector, women had like a huge gap when it comes to salary between men and women. So we worked on a proposal for a government, and what is the impact of increasing women participation in the economy when we have such a law. Plus, we will attract more women to the private sector by having this law. When I talk about the equal wage, I don't mean only the salary itself, even the benefits, the compensation that women takes, the other welfare that the employee takes in the private sector. Today, as you know, it's known globally that woman is not. She doesn't negotiate when it comes to salary or pay or benefits. So by this law, the right is given already, which will increase women participation and encourage women to enter to private sector, and also prevent the employer to do such practices against women when it comes to discrimination. And by this law, we started to get a very positive feedback from women in private sector about the importance of such law for women, especially today in the UAE. We have more than 200 nationalities living from different countries, having such a positive environment, and also a perception about working in UAE is equal and driven by performance, not by gender or any other factors. So this is briefly where we came from.
Yeah, thank you, and thank you so much for also putting the light on the if you will, natural aspects that comes to women when it comes to negotiating for their rights and for their benefits and salary. And this is a point that we always try to coach, our talent when we're discussing, especially when it comes to the offer stage, because we tend to shy away from doing such a thing, and we tend to think that they should know what I'm worth rather than go and prove a point like usually what men would do. So I think also we as women have to develop such a skill, and we need to work on our own, if you will, capability to be able to address what really needs to be addressed and feel comfortable about it. And of course, it's amazing to have a government supporting such an initiative and taking off the weight, if you will, or of the burden from the individuals. Jennifer, looking globally, why gender pay gap still persists in so many countries, in your opinion?
Well, there's a number of factors, as I hear Her Excellency around what's been launched in the UAE. It's amazing. The U.S. has celebrated their centennial of the 19th Amendment, allowing women to vote. We are fairly new into the workforce as we think from a global perspective. There's a number of factors in terms of how women are developed, their social constructs. And many times tradition plays a role, culture. I know, for instance, in Latin America, there's cultural elements in terms of a woman's place. And so, to your point, in terms of what we're teaching our young girls, is not the skills, in terms of negotiation and business. And so I think that's really important as we think about our pipeline. But there's a number of factors globally that there's some aspects that transcends across the global environment. But I think a lot of it is the social constructs around women in the workplace. And again, because we are fairly new in the U.S., particularly to the workforce, we entered the workforce en masse in the 1960s after and so. There's still a lot of catching up, and we also tend to pursue careers that are often underpaid. Whether it's childcare or nursing or school teacher, we often pursue those, and we don't see those as opportunities to transfer skills. And that's something that we're teaching. We're pushing more young girls to pursue degrees in the workforce of today and the future, and then also acquiring the skills. And that's through a number of programs, even Amgen. We think about our external impact and who we're engaging in terms of organizations, whether they be NGOs or community-based. It's really around ensuring we're equipping women with the skills, the business skills, and how are we upskilling and ensuring that their skills that can be transferred. If they pursue science, and they also get into technology. And so really thinking about, how to position them, and then those soft skills that have been sort of a miss in the most part. Even me personally growing up, that was something I was never taught how to, while my brother was able to navigate corporate America and be able to leverage, those skills that was taught them early on. So that, I think that those are some of the barriers. But for what we're seeing, it's a collective effort in order to have a transformational impact, right? So as we think about the role of government, the role of corporate America that are drivers, women globally are over 28 trillion in debt. We're the ones going to spend for our households, for our children. And so, the impacts that we have on the global economy is tremendous. And that is something that we within corporate environment, we always have to put at the forefront, that women are consumers as well, right? And so, how are we representing internally? And that is something that we are collectively looking towards. We are engaging with government and, policy. We're doing our own assessment to say, where did we miss the mark? Right? Taking responsibility. And part of that governance in ESG is the transparency. And so I think there's a huge push for it, and there's a huge desire. I think that now's the time to strike, right? So that our future generations aren't having the same conversation that we've been having for the past 20, 30 years as women have entered in mass, right? Particularly our millennials and our Gen Z, that are now entering the workforce. We have 5 generations in the workforce for the first time. How are we ensuring that, these women, that are 23, 24 years old, 20 years from now are not having the same conversation, trying to tackle the same challenge?
Yeah, absolutely. Your Excellency, can you tell us about the broader environment that are really necessarily to support a meaningful gender balance? Let's say if we want to talk about it from a legal framework, from an individual, from a community level, what can you tell us about it? Sorry, I think that the internet was glitching a bit. Jennifer, you mentioned something until the internet for Her Excellency gets stable.
Sure.
You touched on something that's really heartbreaking, that you said now with the pandemic, the effect of the pay gap is pushing us way backwards in terms of the proper diversity and inclusion. Can you tell us a bit more about that?
So McKinsey just released their 2020 Women in the Workplace study, which we participated in. It was about 317 global companies that participated to really gauge where women were at, particularly during COVID. And so everything from assessing the programs that companies had to support women, everything from mental health, mental well-being to childcare, as women started to not just become, the household, person, making sure their family's okay, the household head in that sense, but also we're becoming teachers as well. And so, the mass exodus that has already begun is really because of that double shift, and because of the when you're looking at the two household incomes and you're seeing the huge disparity between the woman and they both can have lucrative careers, but because we already know on average women make 82 cents on the dollar. For Black and Latinas, we're far from that. Latinas, I believe, are at 52 cents to the dollar. Black women are at 62 cents to the dollar. So they're, that's pretty much, you're getting paid a little bit over 50%, but you're putting in as much work, if not more, right? So that's creating that exodus in terms of women, particularly women in middle management. And that's where we're seeing what's called the broken rung, where we're losing women. And it's almost like a cliff where once they reach mid-management, we're seeing the representation fall off drastically. And we're going to see it more particularly with COVID and just the implications of this new reality for us.
What do you think we should do to prevent it from happening? What can we do? What kind of breaks we can do?
There has to be a holistic approach. I mean, this is, again, everybody has a stake. I'm always talking to our male counterparts. They have a very important role. Particularly because they're at the C level, they're the ones making the decisions. They're the ones that are influencing that change. Unfortunately, Amgen has been, we've got a CEO that is completely committed to this and ensuring the resources are there. Our SVP of HR, who's a woman, is also pushing this in terms of what programs, but then externally, how are we engaging the community? How are we engaging NGOs? How are we engaging, and that's the social sector, right? How are we engaging the public sector, which is our government? How are we looking at this more holistically as everyone should? Because again, everyone has a stake in the game at this, and so I think it's really important for that collaboration. And I've seen it more than ever. I mean, it's really interesting within pharma. We see competitors, but, for the first time, this has allowed us to really come together around a genuine desire to see the change, right? And to really, stop, or at least not stop it, to try to support women, whether it be providing flexible schedules, whether it be developing succession plannings that will allow them to understand what is their upward trajectory or upward mobility within that company. So it's really looking at robust programming and engaging all the stakeholders, which is essentially everyone, right? It's the public, it's government, it's corporate. So they have to drive a lot of this, and it's designing programs to meet women where they're at. If it's because they have to play the teacher role and they're taking care of multi-generational household, can we provide a flexible schedule that will allow them to work at their leisure, right? And then at the core is assessing, where those disparities lay, and then start shifting and investing financially to bring them up to par.
Yeah, Your Excellency, we had a bit of a glitch, so you were just starting to answer the question. So let me give you the floor to answer. We were talking about the broader environment in terms of the necessity required from the legal framework, from the individual role, from the community. How can we all collectively, if you will, work towards having a successful gender balance?
Ideally, I think all nations would put a gender lens to their laws, policies, and regulation, and also the awareness campaigns by introducing gender analysis in the budget is the way to promote equality and benefit the whole society, not just women. Also, end all gender discrimination in finance, access to credit, access to loans, and etc. Also, introducing flexible maternity and paternity leaves across the country to support work-life balance. In addition to end all gender-based violence and protect the whole country's different levels of women from violence, and provide a safe environment for them to whether to work, perform, and do business, and etc. Also, strong education policies should be mandated to all children, especially the girls in the countries who doesn't have mandatory system for education. So basically, these are the main things that goes along with the Sustainable Development Goals, especially number 5, that will facilitate achieving gender equality in the society.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Jennifer, what are the benefits for the corporate organizations once we are implementing equal pay? How does this reflect positively or negatively? I don't know. What kind of an impact it could have on organizations?
Well, I would first say retention. I mean, we see a lot of women move to different roles to navigate. Oftentimes they'll move within the sector. So we lose top place, and to Her Excellency's point is really doing that analysis, that pay analysis.
Jen, sorry, we just lost you. So can you repeat the last sentence one more time, please?
I was just echoing Her Excellency's point around gender pay analysis. It's a responsibility that all corporations should look to.
Absolutely. We're having a lot of questions. So are you okay that we open the floor for Q&As? We still have some questions of our own, but I just thought that let the audience also participate. So can we have the first question, please? All right. What are the greatest challenges we are facing today towards the implementation of diversity in the workplace? Who would like to answer that?
I think lack of, proper policies and legislations that support both women and men in the workplace, and support the gender balance when it comes to flexible policies such as child care center policies in the workplace that support working men, alternative working arrangement, working from home, remote working options, which really showed an evidence of success during the pandemic, and especially for the working moms who have kids at school. It was like a very successful implementation, or let's say pilot for the working from home scheme, especially for women. So I think this chunk of different working arrangements for women is really important.
Great. Okay, we have a nice comment from some of the gentlemen, which is great, saying that great achievements and praising all your efforts Thank you. And of course, this is an inclusive effort. Without you, gentlemen, we won't be able to do it. Islam has a question. From your perspective, what are the major reasons behind the gender pay gap in the Middle East? I guess it's very much related to what we said earlier about our culture, I think, or you know, but I'll leave it to you to answer the way you like.
So, Jennifer, do you want to go ahead and answer?
Actually, I was going to defer to you since you're the expert in the region.
Okay. So I think one of the major issues is the gender stereotype, and again the misperception about women in this part of the world, especially from men perspective. Today, one of the key factors that really supports women to excel and to increase the participation in the workforce is the man, and how the man, what's the man's perception when it comes to equal wage, to women empowerment in the workplace, and women participation in the economy. And I really want to mention the He for She campaign that went really successfully globally, and it's like a pledge that men committed to support women in their society. And it was really it's not just a support for women herself. The whole society believe and understand about the importance of supporting women from men perspective.
And I would add to that, that's not just exclusive to the Middle East. I think there's, one of the focus areas that we've had within our diversity, inclusion, belonging efforts is biases, right? There are gender biases, just like there's ethnic and racial biases. That's what we see most of, where it lends itself to oftentimes with the unconscious bias, unintended consequences that create barriers for women and people of color. And we've been seeing that a lot with particularly with the equal pay.
Great. And David is asking, how do you feel that equality on pay can be a best practice?
A best practice for diversity, inclusion, and belonging, I would say just around the inclusivity. I think that's when women are feeling valued and they're getting the pay, it seems like rule or law that should be in place. Everyone should get equal pay for equal work. What we've seen even in the sports world with the women's soccer league, winning the championship and they're, not making anywhere near what the men are making. We're seeing it as a best practice in terms of even performance, in terms of retention. So it actually, interestingly enough, it actually has a broader financial gain in the long term. And that is a best practice in terms of your business impact and your business imperative.
Thank you. Another question we have: many women in some organizations do not feel inclusive. Do you think equal pay could support women inclusivity in the workplace?
Well, I think equal pay is one element that supports women in the working environment. The other elements are holding higher positions like women on board rooms, development, continuous development, engagement, and representation of women in different conferences and platforms. So she has the opportunity is the key word that I would say, giving the woman the right opportunity to excel. And the equal pay is one of the opportunities that she can get benefit from.
Absolutely. Nada is thanking you, ladies, for shedding the light on this important subject. And the question is, what about the roles that are predominantly occupied by men? Does the UAE government make any effort towards eliminating these prototypes?
I think if we speak about the UAE, the progress when it comes to inclusion of women in different sectors, especially the STEM, is really doing well in the past 10 years, especially women in science, technology, innovation, and space. Today, more than 80% of our UAE space agency jobs occupied by women. And and most of their boards are like positions are also occupied by women. Our minister of space in the UAE, she's a woman. So I think the woman started to be engaged in rare sectors that she was not involved in before. Also, the strata, the aerospace engineering company, the biggest one, has more than like 90% of technical jobs held by women. So I think it's we are moving forward towards including women in these sectors. Again, we need to match the education outcome with the work demand when it comes to different speciality and etc.
Wonderful. Isra has an interesting question, and I think it's worthwhile for having each of you's perspective, if you will, about it. So she's saying, what was your breakthrough moment for raising the flags for women empowerment? Jen, would you like to share yours?
Oh, goodness. I think I've had so many breakthroughs in this career. I've been doing diversity, inclusion, and belonging for over 15 years. Before it was popular, before it was a trend in many ways. I think the biggest breakthrough has just been as soon as entering the workforce and trying to navigate and seeing some of the challenges and struggles, particularly for women of color. As a Latina, there's been a lot of barriers. And so for me, that was one of the biggest red flags. And then I'd see it across even with our, our Black women and our women from other parts of the world. And just experiencing a lot of these disparities and just unfair treatment. So for me, that was just a huge, it's about human rights, equality, and equity. And so, during I think the beginning of my career and that journey, there was that breakthrough where I would visibly see against myself.
Well, I think the turning point, the main milestone or turning point for women is to exceed the middle management level. So as soon as she exceeds that level, with all barriers like work-life balance, family commitments, children commitments, and etc., she and in the higher levels, she would be able to accomplish all her achievements and. Again, excel, and this is where I call it the turning point for women to go through, to overcome all of these challenges.
Great. We're having another question. Asma asking, how can the organization promote its culture internally and externally?
Wow, these are excellent questions. Very probing questions. I could speak in terms of corporate and Amgen. The way that you promote culture is through authentic stories, right? I mean, there's one thing to just share a statement. There's another to really hear the actual stories of the internal culture and allow for employees to voice their experiences. And that helps in terms of employee engagement, but it's certainly an opportunity for companies and organizations to promote. Internally, one of the things that we do is we connect with our ERG global community. They're, not only are they volunteering their time, they're pushing a lot of social and business impact internally and externally. So hearing why they're vested, why this is important to them, and why they're helping co-create this type of culture is much more impactful in terms of that narrative.
Great. And we're having David with a question. But we are seeing a trend where females are leaving the workplace due to managing family pressures. Yes, exactly what Jen, you were touching on. Would flexible working practices not be a quick win?
That would be that's one of many factors, right? It's flexibility, and we have to also take into consideration what their role is, but also any additional support. One of the things that we do is we leverage the community. If there's childcare opportunities or even virtual programming that enriches the academic experience for their children. So it's really looking at that whole model. It takes a village. And so, and that's part of the corporate responsibility as well. So that is one of the areas that we're focusing on, and we're embedding into a larger practice. But it's not the one all be all. It's not, this unfortunately, it's not a cookie cutter approach or, a checkbox to just say, okay, we do this and then it'll solve, the equal pay. It'll solve women, preventing them from leaving en masse. To Her Excellency's point, it takes a number of factors, policies in place, practices. So it has to be a much larger strategy and effort.
Thank you. Khadija is asking, how can we balance between the right of equal pay and measuring performance?
Her Excellency, I'll let you take that one.
Yeah, I think it's really important to be driven by performance and building the culture of men, different nationalities. It's not the matter of again, it's equal wage between men and women. It's beyond that, which is like the working environment should be driven by performance and by result. I mean, so we need to be result oriented and build that culture across the board.
Absolutely. And how can the UAE be a model for other countries in the region and around the globe in implementing more gender responsive policies?
I think the policies and the legislations are the magic stick when it comes to gender equality and women empowerment agenda. This is from our experience. When you have the leadership support and changing the policies and legislations and introducing quotas, everybody follows the government direction because they notice the importance of and the impact of such policies on a long term, on the economy, on the society, even on the companies themselves.
Absolutely. And I always say, when I'm challenged by the quota issue, I always say quota is a tool. Without having a quota, we won't be able to expand and open the door. But absolutely, by the end of the day, I mean, the selection would be for the most competent, most skilled, the best fit. But definitely having, government setting up quotas is a great enablers for us to move forward. Mohanad is asking, do you think due to the high media pressure on diversity, equal pay, etc., sometimes corporates start to be unequal to male employees and push hiring wrong talents to fit the women move?
I can try to tackle that one. So no, it's not in isolation. And when we talk about equal pay, it's the basic that's equal pay for equal work, right? And it's for the most qualified candidate. So what we're focusing on is equitable access to opportunities, and from there, of course, the qualified candidate. If you hire the woman that's more qualified, and just because of the biases and practices in place, you end up underscoring her value because she's a woman. And so if the man was qualified, you would have paid him probably, obviously just based on the numbers of, 82 cents to the dollar. So that's what essentially the equal pay. It's not necessarily to add barriers or remove practices in place that have been very equal towards men, and have been leaning more towards men. but really just ensuring that women have the same equal access to opportunity and are being valued for the same type of work.
Sarah's asking, what are the critical success factors for you in moving up in business as a woman? And I noticed plenty of educated women accepting inequality and seeing it as the norm. How do we change this?
So just can you repeat the question, Nairoz?
Sure. Can we have the question, please, again? Yeah. Your Excellency, can you see it in the banner? Yeah. What are the critical success factors for you in moving up in a business as a woman? And we're noticing plenty of educated women accepting inequality and seeing it as the norm. So women are kind of, giving up and just accepting whatever comes along because they feel that this is the norm. How can we change that? How can we ensure that, qualified women are getting those high ranking type of jobs?
I think we can come over this issue by again taking the opportunities and building confidence. Woman herself needs to build that confidence, whether it's working in the private sector, working as an entrepreneur, as a businesswoman, etc., as an investor. So I think if she overcome this perception, and I think this won't be an issue. And woman herself needs to work harder to build that confidence and to take that opportunities.
Yeah. Okay. And I would add to that, challenge the status quo. I mean, I know in my role as a practitioner, we're really disrupting the system, right? And really looking at reimagining, a place where we don't, that women, educated women don't have to sit in silence. If you've seen what's happening even within the U.S., all of the protests, and it's not just, it was the premise on Black Lives Matters, and that was a movement. In addition to that movement, there's been a movement around with equality. And so women are speaking up. I mean, I'm seeing it in corporate environments where we're saying, okay, this no longer should be the norm. And so I think just challenging that status quo, and to Her Excellency's point, we definitely, we really need to invest in women in terms of those skills that aren't really taught around confidence, negotiation, navigating complex environments outside of what is traditionally set in the academic setting as they go through their educational journey.
Fabulous. Maha is asking, what's the impact of closing the gender pay gap on the labor market?
Her Excellency, do you want to take a stab at that? For me, it's just spending, right? I mean, there's a huge financial gain from the global environment where we're going to continue to push spending. We're going to be able to, just invest in our families and in our futures and our, retirement. So it's got a broader impact globally to the financial, to the markets.
I think one of the major things that human beings need is the self-esteem, to reach that self-esteem. So by having that financial security and financial satisfaction, will definitely reach the self-esteem and excel to the business that she involved in, and etc. So I think, and also for the economy's sake, we will increase women participation in the economy. During the pandemic, we had like a huge issue in many countries, like we had lack of doctors and medical staff of women medical staff. So we noticed the importance of having technical women in those positions or in those specializations. So I think we will diversify the economy and having more inclusion of women in different sectors, more opportunities for countries to include women or increase women participation.
Noor is asking or commenting to start with that it's needless to say that many women exit the workforce when they have children. From your opinion, how are these events handled in organizations supporting equality and diversity?
So actually, can you put the question back up again? Just want to make sure.
It's about women
yeah.
leaving for child support or for parenting, and then what organizations can do to enable them, if you will, or support them during that transition.
I would say, just to the earlier point the earlier points made, is really looking at the programs that within the corporate environments or just organizationally, looking at the programs that exist to support women, again, whether it be providing resources around childcare. We're seeing a lot in the tech industry where they actually have childcare on site. Obviously with COVID, there's some limitations there. But supporting virtual classrooms to just enrich the children's experience, where they're not playing teacher and trying to catch up with work. And then of course the flexible schedule is one aspect that we've mentioned a couple of times, and just ensuring that we're meeting women where they're at and understanding their specific needs.
May is asking, what advice would you give to young women today?
My advice for young women is to shatter the glass ceiling, move forward, the sky is the limit.
Yeah, I echo that sentiment. That's beautifully said.
Thank you.
And Noor asking, can you please provide live examples of corporates that are completely on the right track towards an exemplary equal pay and diversity within the workplace?
I can give corporate examples. A lot of what's happening within the pharma industry is really doing that gap analysis. I think it's a start to determine, and then just we're collecting a lot of data to really analyze, and it's root cause analysis. Like what are we doing so that we can ensure that any solutions that we're implementing not only are sustainable, but are really creating meaningful, lasting change, right? So again, we're not facing the same dilemma or challenges. So, right now, a lot of it is have in place, not just around recruitment, but how are we retaining women and ensuring that they feel like they're included, their voice is heard. And so that's where a lot of the inclusion, belonging, we're at fairly earlier stages of what we're calling this learning journey, this transformational journey. And so a lot has yet to be determined in terms of the impact. But, this is when we talk about diversity, inclusion, and belonging and these efforts, it's not something that's going to happen overnight. It's not something that we stay on trend with. It's something that that corporations really have to invest resources, not just people resources, but financial resources, and ensuring that this is for the long haul, right? So as we look at the society and just the inequalities in society, the workplace and corporate environments are a microcosm of that. So as you can see, we can't transform society in 6 months or a year. There's a lot around behavioral shifts that need to take place. The removal of these biases that are creating these type of disparities. And so I'm always looking at the structural aspect and the behavioral aspect that have to run in parallel so that we can sustain that change, but really start seeing that impact.
Fabulous. So, Your Excellency, one more question I wanted to ask earlier about, the equal pay. Why it's an urgent matter, and why do you think it does matter now more than any time before?
I think since the the whole world now is moving towards adapting the gender balance and gender equality within their national strategies, and it's been an important agenda more than any time before. So we need to take this opportunity and raise such issues, and raise the importance of such issues for economy and society, and how this will impact the countries, and what is the positive side of it. So I think it's the right time to raise it, and because I think the countries, the global organizations, will be very responsible at this point of time in implementing such initiatives that supports gender equality globally. Since 3 of the SDGs objectives allocated for gender equality and women empowerment, I think there is a big door globally to discuss such issues in the time being.
And Jennifer, is equal pay a major equation for inclusivity in organizations? That's another question that came up.
It is one of the major factors. Certainly, women want to feel valued and have that financial security. It's not the only driving factor within inclusivity and belonging, but we do see that that is one of the key factors in terms of attrition.
Is there any last advice, ladies, you would like to give our audience today?
I think we need to work together as a world, whether through global organizations, regional ones, countries, conferences, and tackling this issue on each and every international platform, conferences and events, and raise it up, and we ensure that there is like sessions or activities happening around this subject, amongst men and women, to just create an awareness about the importance of inclusion, diversity, and equal pay, and the issues that gender balance agenda is facing today.
Great, and it's our promise that we will keep on addressing it, and I'm sure that we will be able to host you again and again to keep on being persistent talking about this topic. Yeah. Jennifer, any last advice you would like to give us?
I would just say it's really important. I'm sure you hear allyship all the time. It's really important for all of you to go back to your respective organizations and companies to really challenge the status quo, to be an ally in this effort, especially our men who often have these leadership roles. But to Her Excellency's point, it is a collective effort, and that's the only way that will make tremendous impact. So continuing the conversation, participating in not just the dialogue, but pushing agendas or with policy, really holding our governments accountable to ensuring that this is a priority for them.
Thank you, dear guest. It's been really an amazing, illuminating, and rich discussion. Your answers were on point and very enlightening. I greatly appreciate your valuable time and efforts to answer and clarify these extremely important points. We're very much looking forward to having you in more talks soon. And as for our audience tonight, thank you so much for your participation. I know that we have more questions than we could have answered. I would highly encourage you to post them on our social media, and I personally promise that we'll ensure to get answers from our guest speakers back to you. Feel free to post your questions on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and we will get back to you. Thank you so much, and we wish you that you will have a great night, and looking forward to see you again. Thank you.
Thank you, Roxanne.